keeping someone from Botox for the next 40 years versus, if you want to get Botox one day, great. But like you literally do not need it from 20 to 40 years old.
For sure.
If you have an option like this.
Yeah. Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
Welcome to the Thread the Needle podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Guys, this is a special and amazing human. I'm so excited that she's here. I'm just going to kick it off. Tell us about yourself, what you do, and tell us about FROWNIES.
Okay. Well, I'm Helen Morrison, and I am essentially a full-time content creator and face of the brand FROWNIES. And if you've never heard of FROWNIES, FROWNIES are facial patches you wear at night while you sleep. It's like a natural alternative to Botox. And my great-great-grandmother actually invented FROWNIES in 1889. So it's been a long journey, but yeah, so I basically do all of the social media, all of the social media marketing, and content for all of our paid ads, and really just content for everything that we do.
Yeah. It's so crazy that the brand has been literally just out there for that long. I know you guys probably talk about this within your family. What got your great-great-grandmother started on this?
So my great-great-grandmother and her daughter, Alice, was her daughter was a concert pianist and a model. So between the two of them, for whatever reason, when you're playing the piano, you're furrowing your brow in concentration, kind of like we do at our phones now. But she started to develop those like 11 lines in between her eyebrows. And so they were trying to come up with something to remedy that, because she was doing the modeling and things. Yeah. And they created FROWNIES. Originally, they were called wrinkle eradicators. And so she was making them for herself, and they worked. And so they had friends asking, what are you doing? You look so good. And, women cared about this stuff all that long ago. Anyway, they started making them for friends, and then started manufacturing them little by little to sell, just as like a side business. But my great-great-grandfather, he passed away pretty young, I think, and he was a part of a barber supply company. And I guess they were going to be dissolving or getting rid of it. And so she somehow was able to buy out the rest of the men who owned that business and then started manufacturing FROWNIES under that company's name.
So cool. Yeah.
So that was kind of how she started. And then her and her daughter both just sold FROWNIES. And because of the playing the piano and stuff, I guess she played at the White House and around like circles of famous people, right? So with those Hollywood kind of connections, FROWNIES kind of started getting spread throughout Hollywood. And so that's where it had its roots. And it was originally called like Hollywood's Beauty Secret, back before Botox was even a thing in Hollywood. And there's actually quite a few old magazines and things like that featured Hollywood stars, and old movies featuring Hollywood stars who used FROWNIES or wore FROWNIES in the movie and things like that. So originally it was really like a Hollywood thing.
That is so cool. Like, for it to still be relevant today, and with all the things that are happening within skincare and the beauty industry, how do you feel like it kind of had that effect now? And people are seeing it way more. Obviously, we have social media, and you're pretty much the face of FROWNIES. How do you feel like you guys felt the momentum just kind of pick up within these like last couple of years and generations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, originally, obviously, there was like that Hollywood secret amongst makeup artists and things. And then it was quiet, except that there were the people who knew about them, right? And we had our customers who would call in or write letters and order FROWNIES before the internet. And then in 2000, my grandmother was running the business by herself, and she had one woman who worked in the office and helped fulfill the orders with her. But my parents were actually at my graduation, like out of town, and my grandmother started getting all these phone calls, and she was like, I don't know what's going on. We're getting all these orders. Like normally there was 1 or 2 calls a day, Yeah. And so lo and behold, that year, Renee Rousseau, who is an actress, she was turning and she was on the cover of Good Housekeeping magazine. And at that time, she was talking about all of her favorite things, like fabulous over 40, what are your beauty secrets? Yeah. And there was like a 3-page spread all about Frownies. They had the website and our phone number and told what the product was and had a picture of it in there. Something that, like, advertising wise, we probably wouldn't have been able to afford the cost of that.
Yeah.
But her talking about it and her endorsement of the product, especially because at that time magazines were a lot bigger deal and women read Good Housekeeping.
For
and,
sure.
You know, and Renee Rousseau was like very beautiful 40-year-old woman at that time. So that was like a big boost, right? Mm-hmm. So my mom came in at that time and she developed our whole skincare line. So we do have a full skincare line of products too, even though we're known for mostly the facial patches. Mm-hmm. And we just, you know, there was a big boost and then we just kind of rode that wave. Yeah. And we just kind of leveled out and stayed, you know, pretty stable. And I don't know, I think might have been about 8 years ago now, they got on Amazon and that kind of helped. And you were able to do a little bit of advertising on Amazon. And social media was becoming a thing. So they had social media accounts, but it wasn't, they weren't doing any paid ads. There really wasn't much action on our social media. So you're relying primarily on just old customers and, you know, small boutiques that ordered Frownies wholesale.
Right.
And then Amazon and being able to do Amazon advertising. So finding that they could do advertising, there was a lot of success with that. And because there were smaller, more affordable ways to advertise, that gave another opportunity. So when I started to look at the brand and see our socials, I was doing my own thing with a little side business and using social media to run it. And just taking a deep dive into learning and understanding how to use social media for business. So when I looked at the Frownies channels, I was like, what are we doing? Yeah. This is not okay. You know, we're a real business. We need to look like it. And so initially I came in and my husband came in to kind of take over the marketing because there really wasn't much marketing happening except for on Amazon. And so I thought, okay, like I'm just going to do some Instagram stories and like we'll make some posts and we'll just look better, right? Yeah. I didn't expect it to
kind of take off,
make a big impact. I just thought like, we need this. Yeah. And so we came in at the end of 2020 and right around December of 2020, someone on my personal account sent me a message that was a link to a TikTok. She's like, have you seen this TikTok? It's about Frownies. And I went and I looked at it and it had like over 2 million views at that point. And it's what I would call like the first Frownies TikTok. Yeah. And there was so many people in the comments asking like, where do I buy this? Where do I find this? What is this? And I was like, oh, I need to be on TikTok. I don't want to. You know, I knew I was actually personally on TikTok when it was Musical.ly, like back before. Yeah. And I just, you know, I saw videos and stuff and I thought it was fun, but I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's a lot of work. Yeah. No, thank you. But I like, okay, we have to. Yeah. So I started our account, posted the first video, and immediately that first video, like right away, got like 60,000 views. And I was like, insane. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And so I post again and again. And it's just like 100,000, 200,000, 600,000, for sure. 2 million. It was like that whole year of 2021, we pretty much went viral on TikTok.
That is
with everything.
Wild.
And that was the time to be on TikTok too.
For sure.
Right there, like around the pandemic, everything was focused on short form content and TikTok was really a newer place to be. Mm-hmm. So we were really, really fortunate to be there at that moment. Yeah. And quite frankly, people are looking for a product like this, right? Mm-hmm. Botox is like all the rage. Yeah. And crazy enough, from 2019 to 2022, the increase of Botox from people even under the age of 19 it increased by 71%. Yeah. And then from 20 to 29, it's like 75% increase of using Botox. So that in of itself, at that exact same time that here we come onto the scene showing the world Frownies, you know, I don't know that anybody really like wants to get Botox injections, but they want the look. They want great skin. And so having a natural alternative that actually is effective and the results are crazy. You know, you see the before and after pictures. Yeah. So
that was going to be my next question. How does that make you feel? Because now you are pretty much, everyone knows like your face and seeing it on Frownies and then kind of navigating the comments of Botox versus Frownies. How do you kind of just go about your day, listening and reading some of these comments and then not letting it affect you in a way. But I feel like you said, people just don't understand the reality of like, okay, what does Frownies actually do for your skin?
Right.
And you're like, I'm not trying to hate on Botox, but there is an alternative way.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, there are quite a few comments.
Yeah.
You can never grow a social media channel. You can never go viral without there being haters.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the haters are in many ways the fuel to the fire.
Right.
You know, you get a comment of somebody who's like angry at you and thinks you're a liar.
Yeah.
And then that comment section is 120 comments deep. And
Yeah.
that's why your video keeps getting shown to people.
Right.
So on one hand, you just have to remind yourself, like, as much as they are throwing out the hate, like the sales are coming in.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I will say, it's a lot easier for me now, you know, 3 years in or 3.5 years in. When I first started that and got on TikTok and everything was going viral, I definitely had a moment where I was like, I am not comfortable with this. I just felt like, oh no, like, maybe there's gonna be like crazy people find me or find my children. You know, I was very freaked out at first. And I remember having a moment of like, this is really sort of scary. And I went and like made all my personal social media private because I don't know, I just felt exposed and I wasn't ready for that. I didn't think that was going to happen. And so it was just a strange thing. I had to be like, how do I feel? Am I safe? Am I okay? You know? So there was just that feeling of like, this is weird. And I honestly am not someone who ever I would never want to be famous. I'm not famous by any means. Obviously, like women from like 20 to 40 have probably seen my face on Instagram, but you know, you see famous people can't even function in their life without people just writing things that are awful. It's so, you know, you have no privacy. And so I was like kind of weirded out. And then I came to myself and was like, okay, I'm okay. And initially the hate comments were mostly focused around like, you have Botox. This isn't true. And I at first was like, oh, that's funny. Like, you think my skin looks so good that that I have Botox?
You're like, I'm flattered.
Okay,
thank you.
Cool. So at first it was kind of like, oh, like that's funny, whatever. And it didn't get to me. But then people like dig their heels in, you know? And so I, right from the start, did not want to be intimidated by the hate. And I think that I've seen a lot of creators who started around that same time. I don't know if you know Elise Myers on TikTok. Well, I think she's like taking a break and she's like off of all social right now. But she was somebody who started right around when I did, and I watched her grow and I watched the hate and multiple other people like her. I watched the hate that they've endured over the years, and you see people's mental health, like really, it takes a toll. A big thing that helped me, honestly, and a lot of people don't know, but the first year while we were so viral, we responded to every comment, everything. My husband actually was really in it with me, kind of like the unsung hero. A lot of people know that I do this, but they're like, well, what do? You know, to him. And he and I would respond to all the comments and messages together. And a lot of times he took a lot of the hate comments and would those for me. And he really learned how to sound like me. And we just created this like Frownies voice, and we would reply to everyone. And he replied to so many messages and DMs and comments. Like over the course of that entire year. And I think without him, if I had to like see all of it on my own, it would have been a lot harder, but he took a lot of them, and he's a lot better at being really gracious. Cause I would get times where I'm like, I just want to say something back, you know, I can't take it anymore. But one thing that I definitely did and still do is I would make response videos and almost try to like make it funny, like make light of it. Because that helped me, because, you know, sometimes when people come at you and they're really aggressive and it feels intimidating and it kind of like takes your power. And when you respond back and you make it funny and you kind of throw it back to them, but in a kind way, you get your power back. Like, and honestly too, I got to where I actually appreciated the ultra ridiculous hate comments, because I would make a response video. It was the perfect opportunity to turn it into content. And on days, even when our views and stuff started to be like lower and we just didn't have a lot of action, I would make a response video to some ridiculous comment. And all of a sudden we're back, you know, like everything's blowing up again, because people really appreciated the authenticity. They appreciated the fact that the products were effective. And so we'd have all these people coming to our defense. So it's a constant balancing act between knowing when to take a break and stop reading and stop replying back to things. And then also times where you can like make it funny and put some energy behind it and use it for good.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a weird phenomenon to feel like strangers on the internet, you know, think they know you and they're telling you, you know, you're a liar and this and that. And ultimately, I didn't really mind so much the comments about like how terrible they think I look or how they think I have Botox or all these things. You know, you look 65, you know, there's so many ridiculous things. That stuff, it was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But the things that really bother me was like randomly I would find someone else's video talking about frownies or even like talking about it in a hateful way. And someone in the comments would be like, I hate that girl. She's so obnoxious, this and that. And it was like,
It's like they've never even met
like
you before.
something
Yeah.
like that was always the hardest. It's like, whatever. You think I have Botox? I don't care.
Yeah.
But when it's just like, wow, like, and that's a little like sort of behind your back in a way because they're commenting to someone else. It's not to you. It's just over here.
For sure.
Seeing people say like, I hate her. She's like so obnoxious. It's like, oh.
But then you just realize you're
what
like,
did I do?
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like you're always just going to get those comments because people just want to go on social media just to troll people. And
Right.
You're always going to have that.
Yes.
But honestly, I think your videos, even when you're doing something with Frownies and then you responding to comments, I think it does really help because like you said, authenticity and vulnerability for your brand is what people are looking for. So you're kind of like, and I think you do a really good job with this. You're like, I have nothing to hide. This is literally what I look like with or without makeup. And then you also show what frownies look like after you work out or before you go to bed, after you wake up. Like you do a really good job. So
thanks.
I mean, your brand, I think it's amazing and it's such a great alternative that more and more people are finding out because I feel like even your videos where people talk about Botox and that they've gotten Botox and then they don't get like Botox maybe within the next couple of years, they'll be like, oh, I put frownies on today because I'm actually just waiting to get like my next session. But then they realize, oh, this actually works.
Working.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I was going to ask you, so being in a family business, what is that like? Like working with your family, working with your husband, because you guys have had this brand for so long and you kind of like came into this. What's that like? Because,
well, the easier part of that question to answer first, I will speak to like working with my husband.
Yeah.
So prior to doing this, my husband was a pilot for the first 10 years of our marriage. So we really never had a normal life because he was gone all the time, you know, on call for the first few years. So randomly leaving in the middle of the night. And then for the last few years, he was gone 8 and 6. So like every 8 days he was gone and he'd be home 6 and it just was like that on repeat. So we were actually in a place where we were super strained in our relationship just because we were living totally separate lives and it was really difficult. And when we considered making this move and him leaving aviation for the sake of our family and us working together in Frownies, honestly, I was kind of terrified because I sort of felt like I hated it when he left and I also hated it when he came back. And it was just this like everything was always rocky.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if he's here and we work together, like, are we going to want to kill each other? Like, that's going to be terrible. But I just didn't know because I was so used to just a sort of a dysfunctional schedule.
Yeah.
And actually the year 2020 during COVID, obviously everything was shut down. So he stopped flying and he was home. Even though he was technically still a pilot, we hadn't moved into this position yet. But that short period of time where he was just home all the time, it was an immediate shift to where like, oh, wow, this is actually great. I like having you here. I like having you around. And so when the opportunity to do this came about, we were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try this. And it's crazy because we went from seeing each other very little to now we're together nearly 24/7, working together, at home together, everything together. And I am a very independent person and I definitely need my space. So I wouldn't have thought that would go well, but I guess, you know, it's just a sign that we're the right match because we working together, actually, we really enjoy.
Yeah.
And we've been able to be a support for each other in the other aspects of family business that are very challenging. So I feel like he and I are really allies and have, we have our moments and, we need some space to go do our thing. And he has the part that he focuses on, and I have my strengths. And I feel like we've been able to really well complement each other and, celebrate each other through this.
Yeah.
So that has been good. And I think we're really fortunate in that. I know that that's a lot harder for a lot of couples.
Yeah.
But the family business part is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't know this would happen. Just a little backstory on me. When I was 17, I graduated high school and I moved from Ohio to Texas and I never came back. And I love my family, very close with them, but I needed my own space. I needed boundaries. I needed to be apart.
Yeah.
And I thought this will be fine because I'll just be doing some Instagram stories. I'll just be doing a little thing.
Yeah.
They're not in it. It's okay. No big deal. And then when this blew up to, the business has, more than 10x since we came and did all this.
Yeah.
And now there are days, to be totally honest, because I don't own this company outright. I am one of the owners, but it's like a family thing. There are days where I feel like this is like a ball and chain and I'm trapped and I can't get out, and that is hard. And at the same time, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to do this, to be able to bless my family.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as when it's just you. Yeah. And if you want to take a risk with something or you want to make a shift in something, you can just do that.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely challenging navigating relationships and wearing all the different hats. Because for me, there's I'm a board member, and I'm an owner, and I'm a daughter, and I'm a sister, and I'm a sister-in-law, and I'm a wife, and I'm the face of the brand, and I work here, and there's so many different hats that I wear, and so it's in conversations with family members, there's always has to be almost this qualifier of I'm wearing this hat right now. I'm talking to you as X.
Yeah.
Because maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to say this if I was just talking as an employee of a company.
Right.
But right now, I'm your daughter and I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely challenging. And honestly, if I could go back, I probably wouldn't have done it again. I'm so I love it, I love the community we've built. I love what I get to do, but it's the hardest endeavor ever.
It's so interesting that you say that because I feel like a lot of people say it where if they knew too much of what was going to come, they wouldn't have done it. And I love that you kind of see all these things within your journey.
Yeah.
Do you feel like sometimes it's challenging, when you're with your family, you guys have get-togethers or it's holidays and you have to kind of put that boundary of okay, we're just going to talk about regular things versus work? Because I feel like we have a hard time with that with some of our family, and it's always just business, business, business. And we're just okay, can we talk about something else?
Yeah, it's really hard. Most people probably understand that just getting together with your family in general can be difficult, right? Because there are the natural roles you kind of fall back into, or the expectations of your family, who they think you are or who they knew you to be, but that was 25 years ago. Yeah. So those family dynamics and the family roles are really challenging already.
Yeah.
And so having boundaries with family is just difficult. Yeah. And then you add to that business, it is an extra layer that makes things really challenging. Yeah. And I definitely think there's a lot more talking about business than I want.
Yeah.
And I tend to kind of be go talk to the children.
Yeah.
Go play with my kids. Go see them. Yeah. They need you. Leave me out of this, because it is hard to cut off the conversations just about work and about business. Yeah. And truthfully for me, I would prefer in family settings to have 0% conversation about business. It's if we want to talk business, let's all say we're putting our business hats on. There's no more personal. We're going to go in the room and we're going to say what we need to say,
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes to business, it's people say It's not personal, it's business. Meaning you have to say hard things because this is business. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Whereas in family, a lot of times you're like, you know what? It's not worth disrupting the peace of this situation for something to fight a battle that I'm not going to win. Like, let's just be a family. Let's let the kids have a good experience with their relatives and let's just do the thing.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with business. You can't sweep things under the rug and you can't ignore issues and problems.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in families, I don't think it's good to ignore issues and problems, but there are things where, you know what, like this is just the boundary. This is the relationship we're going to have and that's that.
Yeah.
And so when you have that extra business component and everybody wants to bring it up all the time,
for sure,
it's definitely difficult.
Yeah. I definitely understand that. Okay. Let me ask you a question and then tell me how you feel about this. Now that your brand is where it's at, how do you feel about influencers reaching out to you guys and what that's been like? Talk through a little bit about what the last 5 years were like working with influencers, or if you did work with influencers, and what it's like now.
Yeah. For me personally, like I said, we were extremely fortunate that first whole year on TikTok, there was a ton of virality. And then when there's a viral moment, obviously everybody kind of jumps on trends, right? So there were so many dermatologists, plastic surgeons, creators, influencers, small influencers, large influencers, people using Frownies, and even some accounts who had like less than 2,000 followers make a video about Frownies, and it's their most viral video of all time with 6 million views. So there was just crazy stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
So during that first year, we had a ton of people reach out like, oh, can you send me some of this and I'll make a video or, just whatever.
Yeah.
And honestly, that whole year, I just always said no.
Yeah.
Truthfully, we were so fortunate. We had so much happening. We didn't need it. I was barely keeping up with all the people sharing and everything that was happening anyway. And it was really, really important to me during that time to just build a ton of relationships with people, with other creators, with other influencers, whatever, organic relationships, right? And for me, because I like social media and I enjoy following other people who are doing really cool content. So just building that relationship was really important to me. And I think it was really the bedrock of where we are now. Because even to this day, we don't work with influencers. We do have like an affiliate program, but I'm extremely picky even with that, because for me, authenticity is super, super important.
Yes.
I think a lot of businesses run their brand accounts like a brand. It looks like a business. It looks like a brand because I really was never in business ever before this. I have always run our brand like a personal account because for me also it is personal. This is my family's story. So now it's my story. And so we've never been like that flashy, put together, polished, branded content. And because I've just been a person and I've shown up authentically and I've connected with other people in that way, and because the product really it works and people love it.
Right.
It was easy to build those connections and to build that relationship. And reality is too, no skincare is a quick fix.
Right.
Unless you get Botox or you get plastic surgery, everything takes time. And so the reality is most PR, like a lot of companies send PR out, right? We don't ever do that either. We don't do any gifted product. We don't do any paid, like here's this stuff, make a video about it. And for me, I never wanted to do that because I just feel like while I get that some brands have to, it seems fake to me. And I know I know if you don't use this product and you haven't used it for 30 days to 4 months, you don't even know what it does. And so how can you really speak to it? And I think in today's world, people are genuinely looking for real, true, authentic testimonies. They're sort of sick of UGC and influencers unless it really is real. And I think you can tell when it's scripted. You can tell when it's like, you never really used that product, or maybe you did, but that sounds like you're reading off of a teleprompter, right? So we don't do any influencer collabs or anything like that. We do get a lot of requests. But honestly, I just tell everybody, hey, we actually don't do any paid collabs or influencers. We do have an affiliate program, but we only work with people who genuinely and authentically use the product. So if you'd like to send me a picture of your face and you want to try Frownies, I'll give you some recommendations. I'll give you a discount code. You can try it and then come back to me. But that's all.
I'm so glad that you said that because when we first started, there was it was half and half. where some people were like, you should work with influencers. And then some people were like, don't work with influencers. And then we were friends with a girl who also has a brand. And she was kind of an influencer when she started. She literally was like, do not work with influencers. Like, it's a waste of money. You're not going to see the return. And we worked with like a couple of them in the beginning. And it was facts. There was no return. Because it is tough to find people to be like really authentic and love your brand. And some people would reach out and I'm like, you guys don't even talk about fashion or anything about leather. So how are your
I've had food accounts that they all food pictures. I'm like, what are you going to do
like,
for
how is
us?
your followers or your audience really going to connect with what you're putting out there? So even hearing from you and your perspective, because your brand is obviously, it's bigger, it's getting out there. People are seeing what Frownies are. But I feel like in this day and age, the influencer marketing, they work with brands like Nike or Adidas, and then they get paid like $50,000 a post. And I'm like, you reach out to a smaller brand. I'm like, I'm not going to pay you $50,000. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's always kind of like, I don't know. We're always like a tug of war with sometimes.
Well, I will tell you this. Actually, so I said we don't send out any gifted product. I have like 2 people who come to mind that did reach out asking for a product. And for whatever reason, I was like, I am going to send you some. There's this one girl specifically who she's on TikTok. Her account's all like acne. She's really young, like 20, I don't know, 23 now maybe. Maybe younger, maybe 21. She reached out, and at the time, her TikTok, she had like 2,000 followers, which for TikTok, like you can usually grow to that if you're pretty consistent. You know, that's not like an astronomical following. So she reached out and she's like, hey, you know, I do this kind of stuff like everybody else does. They tell you their little like portfolio of who they are. And I looked at her content and she was so consistent, like posting so much that I was like, you know what? I like this girl more than anything. I want to give her our face wash because I used to have acne when I was younger and the face wash like changed my life. So I was like, I'm going to send her some Frownies and I'm going to send her some face wash. Like, so what? Like if I never hear back, I like you. I'm going to do this. And I sent that to her. This girl now has almost 200,000 followers within that year. That's like amazing. Quickly she was growing because I could see. And I think that's the thing is you can work with influencers, but you got to be choosy and don't look at the number of followers. It's all about their consistency, their quality, their engagement, their authenticity. And sometimes you just know. And I feel like with her, I was like, she's going to be a star. Like this girl's great. And she has made, I mean, even actually like a month later, she made some Frownies videos. It had over 2 million views, that first one she made. Like she consistently still talks about Frownies. Now, we didn't pay her to do that, right? We just sent the product. But since then, like I'm not trying to get free stuff out of people, right? Like I'm not trying to be like, I'm going to use you to make Frownies videos.
For sure.
But, and with that, like I definitely have influencers who we have sent them significant financial gifts after the fact though. It was like, they've done this. They've made these videos. They've made this content for us. We had no contract. We have no agreement. They're just doing this because they love it. And so as a brand, I want to give back to them too. So we've definitely reached out and been like, hey, we want to send you this. Like, here's a check, you know, because you've made a difference in our brand. And I think then we've created that relationship too. And she and I actually even have like kind of like mastermind calls a lot and stuff. And I've kind of helped her like with amazing. Her content. So there's different ways of working with people. It's more like I like to network with, I would say creators. Because influencers are looking for, and you can see on their page, it's like every post is a different product. It's a different thing. It's just like, that's what they do. And I'm not looking for that. I am looking for creators, people who are authentic, who do what they do, who are raving fans of the few things that they really love. And those kind of people I would definitely work with, you know? But brands just need to be careful because just because somebody has a large following, it's like, are they making the kind of content you want? Are they even talking on camera in their videos? Or is it just,
is it just kind of like whatever?
Promo? It's all like, it's all ads, you know? It's like, no, thanks.
I'm really glad that you talked about that and the differentiation between the two of like who you work with and really kind of going with your gut of seeing.
And don't underestimate the small creators who haven't
for sure
had anything happen yet.
100%.
There's a lot of those people who have been like so incredible.
Yeah.
And they're just real people too.
Yeah.
They're not like, well, I'm owed something.
Yes.
You know, and
like they don't have that.
They don't act like they're famous.
Right. And it's like they're willing to work with you and really like be about your brand.
Yeah.
Which I love. Is there anything that is coming up for Frownies or anything that you'd like to share that is coming up this year or any new products you guys are dropping?
I think we're always looking at expanding the product line and looking at ways to, you know, make the brand pop. But there's not anything specific that I would say is like on the horizon. I mean, honestly, more than anything, I feel like our bread and butter really, it's Frownies.
Yeah.
And if you haven't tried it, you should try it.
Yes.
I guess the thing I would say is my biggest passion is for younger people. A lot of people see our brand and they're like, oh, show this on somebody who's 60, you know, which I'm like, great. But truthfully, if you waited till 60 to take care of your skin, it's going to be a long, hard road.
Yeah.
You know, and the rise of young people getting Botox is crazy. There's so many, you know, a lot of times people see, we have some ads with younger girls who are like 27, 25. And we get a lot of criticism of like, why are you promoting this anti-aging product to young women? And truthfully, I do not consider Frownies an anti-aging product because for me, people, you know, do criticize like, well, just let women age in peace. And I'm like, look, I'm aging. I have some wrinkles. I have some fine lines. I have these things. Frownies are not going to stop your skin from aging. And quite frankly, the wrinkles that come from aging, Frownies aren't going to help.
Yeah.
Frownies are targeting muscle tension. Like if you're furrowing your brow all the time, you can be 21 and have expression lines.
Yeah.
And that's really what Frownies are doing. They're relaxing the facial tension. And that's what Botox is doing.
Yeah.
And if you get Botox and you're 60, you're still going to look 60. If you use Frownies and you're 60, you're still going to look 60. You're just going to have a relaxed forehead. And so for me, the young girls who are being targeted by the industry, the beauty industry for injections, filler, plastic surgery and all of that. My heart really is to reach the younger people because, and the thing is we make less money off of a younger customer. So it's not for the money, you know, if you're older, you're going to have to buy a lot of it and use a lot of it and do it consistently to get a result. When you're really young, you can get a box of Frownies. It might last you 6 months or a year. And that's like $24, you know? So for me, I just really care about reaching younger people and more, I think for me, what I'm excited about as a brand is shifting our brand messaging to be more relevant to younger people. Yeah. Because that's the audience that I care. Keeping someone from Botox for the next 40 years versus, you know, if you want to get Botox one day, great. But like you literally do not need it from 20 to 40 years old.
For sure.
If you have an option like this. Yeah. And, you know, people say, oh, it's safe, whatever. It has a black box warning. So there are crazy stories out there. Yeah. And I don't think that 20 years of using it potentially unnecessarily, who knows what that's going to do to you. Yeah. And then 40 to 50 more years of your life using Botox, that's a long time to use a neurotoxin, you know, whereas if you get it later in life, I get it. I understand why people do it. You know, you're probably less likely to have a bad outcome. Yeah. And so my heart is like shifting the brand more towards younger people. Yeah. I love that. Because I think that's where it's the younger people who their insecurities are preyed upon by the industry, you know?
Yeah. I feel like, I think that's so beautifully said because the industry and the beauty industry and keeping up with it, I feel like the younger girls that are coming up, they're just like, oh, I have to look like this. And they have to kind of just feel like they have to be, I don't know, makeup on all the time, making sure they have the right lips and the right nose. So I think it's kind of beautiful what you guys are putting out there and just being vulnerable and what it really is about. And you guys are doing a great job. So
thanks.
I love it. Guys, follow Frownies, follow Helen. She does amazing with her brand. Give them a follow and give this episode a listen on Apple or Spotify. And I'm just so excited to see where the brand goes. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yay.